English Daily, the podcast.
Your English journey starts now. Hey, English learners. Welcome back to your podcast, the English Daily Podcast.
Yes, we're so happy to have you here today.
Today's episode is all about planning a holiday and navigating airport travel.
That's right. Whether you're planning your first trip abroad or you're a seasoned traveler, there's always something new to learn about the process.
So we're going to cover everything from booking your flight to arriving at your destination, and we'll throw in lots of useful vocabulary along the way.
My name is Jack, and I'm here with my co-host Anna.
Hey everyone, I'm Anna, and I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because I have so many travel stories to share.
Oh, I bet you do. I know you travel quite a bit, Anna.
I do, and I've definitely made some mistakes along the way that I can tell you about so you don't have to make the same ones.
That's perfect. That's exactly what we're here for, so let's dive right in.
So let's start from the very beginning, Jack. When you plan a trip, what's the first thing you do?
Oh, that's a great question. The first thing I usually do is figure out when I can actually travel. Checking my work schedule, seeing if I have vacation days saved up, that kind of thing.
That makes sense. So it's not always about where you want to go, but when you can go.
Exactly. Timing is so important. I remember one time I wanted to go to Barcelona, and I found these amazing flight deals, but then I realized I couldn't get the time off work. It was so frustrating.
Oh no, that must have been disappointing.
It was. But you live and learn, right? Now I always check my calendar first before I get too excited about any destination.
That's a really good tip. So after you figure out the timing, what's next?
After that, I usually start looking at destinations. I'll check flight prices to different places and see what fits my budget. I love using those flight comparison websites because you can see prices for whole months at a time.
Oh, which websites do you use? I always wonder if there's a better way to find deals.
Well, I use a few different ones. Google Flights is really good because you can set up price alerts. There's also Skyscanner, which is great for comparing different airlines. And sometimes I just go directly to airline websites because they sometimes have deals that don't show up on the aggregators.
That's really helpful. I didn't know airlines sometimes have exclusive deals on their own sites.
Yeah, it's worth checking multiple sources. I also like to be flexible with my dates if I can be. Flying a few days earlier or later can sometimes save you $100 or more.
That's such a good point. Being flexible with your travel dates really can make a big difference.
Curious, what about the accommodations, Anna? Do you book those at the same time or do you wait?
I usually book everything at once I've decided on a destination. Actually, wait, let me think about this more carefully. I think I book flights first and then accommodations shortly after.
I think I'm the same way. You need to have your flights confirmed before you can really figure out where you're going to stay, right?
Exactly. And also, I like to make sure I have a rough itinerary before I book a hotel. Like, where's the hotel located? Is it close to public transportation? Is it in a safe neighborhood? Those things matter to me.
Oh, that's smart. Do you have any horror stories about hotel locations?
Oh my goodness, do I. So there was this one time I booked a hotel in Paris because it was super cheap, and it looked great in the pictures. But when I got there, it was in this really sketchy neighborhood, and the street looked nothing like the photos online.
Oh no, that's awful.
It was. The hallway smelled weird, and there was noise all night long. I didn't sleep at all, and I ended up having to book a different hotel last minute, which cost way more than if I had just done my research properly in the first place.
That's such a valuable lesson. Sometimes saving money up front ends up costing you more in the long run.
Definitely. Now I always read reviews carefully, and I pay attention to where the hotel is located. I also like to check if it's near a metro station or bus stop. Those are really practical tips. Now, let's talk about different types of accommodations. I know some people love hotels, but have you ever tried Airbnb or hostels?
Oh, I love Airbnb. I've had some amazing experiences with Airbnb. One time in Tokyo, I stayed in this tiny apartment, but it was in the perfect location, and the host left this handwritten guide to the neighborhood with all these local recommendations.
That sounds amazing. I love that personal touch.
Curious, what about you, Anna? What's your preference?
Honestly, it depends on where I'm going. For city breaks, I usually prefer hotels because they have more predictable service and amenities. But for longer trips or beach vacations, I've really enjoyed Airbnb because you can have a kitchen and more space.
Yeah, being able to cook your own meals can save you so much money.
That's so true. And it can be a fun experience too. You get to shop at local grocery stores and cook with local ingredients.
I love that idea. It really adds to the travel experience.
So let's say we've booked our flights and our accommodations. What's next on the planning list?
Well, I always like to research things to do with the destination. I'll look up popular attractions, but I also like to find hidden gems, less touristy stuff.
How do you find those hidden gems?
Well, I read a lot of travel blogs, and I also check out Reddit threads for the specific city. Local recommendations are the best. Sometimes the best restaurant I found was just because a local person suggested it.
That's such great advice. Local knowledge really is invaluable.
It really is. And I think that's a good transition to our next topic, which is all about what happens at the airport.
Okay, so let's talk about the airport experience, Jack. What's the first thing you do when you arrive at the airport?
Well, it depends on whether I've checked in online or not. If I've done online check-in, which I almost always do now, I can usually go straight to the baggage drop-off if I have checked luggage, or straight to security if I'm traveling with just a carry-on.
That's so convenient. I remember when you had to check in at the counter every time, and it would take forever.
Right? And now there's even apps where you can check in on your phone and get your boarding pass sent directly to you. It's so much easier.
What about those self-service kiosks? Do you use those?
Sometimes, if I haven't checked in online, I'll use a kiosk. They're really quick and easy. You just type in your booking reference or scan your passport, and it prints out your boarding pass and baggage tag.
And if you need help, there's usually someone nearby to assist you. Don't be afraid to ask.
That's a good reminder. Now, what about luggage? How do you decide what to bring and how to pack efficiently? Oh, I'm such a minimalist when it comes to packing. I always say that less is more. I try to fit everything into a carry-on if I can because it saves time. You don't have to wait for your luggage at the carousel, and you don't risk your luggage getting lost.
Wait, luggage can actually get lost? That happens more than I thought.
It does happen, unfortunately. It's not super common, but it does occur. That's why I always try to keep my essentials in my carry-on, like a change of clothes and my medications and important documents.
That's really smart. I never thought of that.
It's a lesson I learned the hard way. There was this one trip where my baggage didn't show up and I was in a foreign country without any of my clothes. I had to go out and buy everything, which was not cheap.
Oh no, that sounds like a nightmare.
It was not fun, that's for sure. Now I'm always prepared for that possibility.
So what about carry-on luggage? Are there rules about what you can bring?
Oh yes, there are lots of rules. Each airline has its own size and weight limits for carry-on, and there are security regulations about liquids, gels, and sharp objects.
The liquid rules always confuse me. Can you remind me what those are?
Sure. The general rule is that you can only bring liquids in containers of 100 milliliters or less, and they all have to fit into a single clear plastic bag of about 1 liter. That's the famous 3-1-1 rule. 3-ounce containers, 1 quart-sized bag, 1 bag per passenger.
I always forget and try to bring my full-size shampoo or something.
Me too. It's so tempting to just grab your regular toiletries, but you can usually buy those things at your destination, or you can pack them in your checked luggage.
That's true. I always check the TSA website or the website of the country I'm traveling to because the rules can be different. Some countries are stricter than others. What about going through security? What should people expect?
So you queue up in the security line, and when it's your turn, you put your carry-on bag, your laptop, and your liquids bag on the X-ray belt. Then you walk through the metal detector or body scanner.
And you need to take off your shoes, your belt, and sometimes your jacket, too. It's different depending on the airport and your situation.
I always worry about setting off the alarm or doing something wrong.
Don't worry. The security officers are used to helping people. Just follow what they tell you, and if you're not sure, just ask. They're usually pretty helpful.
I remember my first time going through security in the US, and I didn't know I had to take off my shoes. The security guard was really nice about it and waited for me to put them back on.
That's funny, but also a good reminder that it's okay to take your time.
Now, what about boarding the plane? What's that process like? So, once you get through security, you find your gate, which is usually shown on your boarding pass. You want to get there early because sometimes gates change and you want to make sure you're ready when they start boarding.
How early should you get to the gate?
I usually like to be there at least 30 minutes before boarding starts for domestic flights and an hour for international flights, but it depends on the airport and how busy it is.
That's good advice. And what happens when they start boarding?
They usually call groups based on seating, like first class and business class first, then economy by rows. Your boarding pass will show your group or zone number.
And you just line up and show your boarding pass to the gate agent, and then you walk onto the plane.
That's right. And finding your seat is pretty straightforward. Just look at the row number and the seat letter, which is usually A through F or A through K, depending on the plane.
I remember being so confused the first time I flew because I didn't know about the letter system, but it's actually pretty logical once you get the hang of it.
Everything is learnable, and you'll get the hang of it quickly.
Okay, so now let's talk about travel documents, which is such an important topic, especially for international travel.
Where do we even start, Anna? There's passport, visa, customs declaration. It's a lot.
Let's start with the basics. Your passport is the most important document. It should be valid for at least 6 months beyond your planned departure date from your destination country. That's a really common requirement.
6 months? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's something a lot of people don't think about until it's too late. I always check the expiration date before I book any international trip.
What about visas? How do people know if they need one?
That's a great question. It depends on your citizenship and where you're traveling to. Some countries have visa-free agreements, which means you can enter without a visa for a certain period. Others require you to apply for a visa in advance.
How do you find out if you need a visa?
I usually check the embassy or consulate website of the country I'm traveling to. They always have up-to-date visa requirements. There are also these handy websites that let you put in your citizenship and destination and tell you what you need.
That's so helpful. I didn't know those existed.
There are also these things called ETAs or e-visas, which you can apply for online before you travel. It's much easier than going to an embassy in person.
That makes sense. Now, what about customs? What happens when you arrive at your destination?
When you arrive, you go through immigration first. That's where they check your passport and visa, and they might ask you some questions about why you're visiting and how long you're staying.
What kind of questions do they ask?
They might ask things like, what's the purpose of your visit? How long will you be staying? Where will you be staying? Do you have a return ticket? Just answer honestly and have your documents ready. I remember getting a little nervous the first time I went through immigration, but as long as you have everything in order, it's usually pretty quick.
That's true. And then you go to baggage claim to get your checked luggage, if you have any. After that, you go through customs where you declare what you're bringing into the country.
What do you have to declare?
It varies by country, but generally you have to declare things like large amounts of cash, valuable items, and certain food products. There's usually forms you fill out during the flight, or sometimes you can do it electronically now.
And there's also the duty-free shopping aspect. If you buy things at duty-free in the airport, you don't have to pay taxes on them. But there are limits to how much you can bring in duty-free goods.
Yeah, I always forget about those limits. You can usually bring in a certain amount of alcohol and cigarettes without paying duty, but if you go over, you have to pay taxes.
Concerned, what happens if you don't declare something you're supposed to?
You can get fined, and they might confiscate your items. It's not worth the risk. Just be honest and declare everything.
That's the best policy. And honestly, the customs officers have seen everything. They're not going to be surprised by anything you have.
Now, what about those global entry or TSA pre-check programs? Are they worth it?
Oh, absolutely. If you travel frequently, those programs can save you so much time. TSA PreCheck lets you go through security faster in the US. You don't have to take off your shoes or remove your laptop from your bag.
That sounds amazing. I always find those steps so time-consuming.
And global entry includes TSA PreCheck plus faster customs processing when you return to the U.S. You just go to one of those kiosks instead of waiting in the regular immigration line.
How do you apply for those?
You fill out an application online, and then you have to go to an enrollment center for an interview. It takes a bit of time, but once you're approved, it lasts for 5 years.
It's totally worth it if you travel even just a couple of times a year.
Yeah, definitely consider it if you're a frequent traveler. Okay, let's talk about the actual flight experience now, Jack. What should people expect once they're on the plane?
Well, once you find your seat and get settled, the flight attendants will go through some safety instructions. Then the plane will taxi to the runway and take off. After that, you can usually get up to use the bathroom and move around the cabin.
Is it safe to move around during the flight?
Yes, it's completely safe. It's actually good for you to get up and stretch your legs, especially on longer flights. Just be careful when the seatbelt sign is on.
And speaking of longer flights, what about dealing with jet lag? That's something I always struggle with.
Jet lag is the worst. I have a few tips that help me. First, try to adjust your sleep schedule a few days before you travel. If you're flying east, go to bed earlier. If you're flying west, stay up later.
Does that actually work?
It does help. Also, as soon as you get on the plane, try to set your watch to the destination's time zone. That mental adjustment helps.
And stay hydrated. The air in the cabin is very dry, so drink plenty of water. Avoid alcohol and caffeine because they can mess with your sleep schedule.
That's hard because I always want a glass of wine on the plane.
I know, right? But try to limit it, especially on long flights. It just makes jet lag worse.
Another tip is to try to sleep according to the destination schedule. If it's nighttime at your destination, try to sleep on the plane. Use an eye mask and earplugs or noise-canceling headphones.
Those are really practical tips. What about food? Should you eat on the plane or not?
I usually eat what they serve, but I don't overdo it. The meals can be pretty heavy and you don't want to feel sick. I also like to bring some snacks in case I get hungry between meals.
That's a good idea. What kind of snacks do you bring?
I like to bring things like nuts, crackers, and fruit. Nothing too messy or smelly. And I always bring a water bottle that I can fill up after going through security.
Great minds think alike. I do the same thing. Now, what about arriving at your destination? What's the first thing you do?
Well, once the plane lands and you get off, you follow the signs to immigration if it's an international flight, or straight to baggage claim if it's domestic. Then you go through customs, get your luggage if you have any, and then you're out in the arrivals area.
And then what's the best way to get to your accommodation?
It depends on the city and your budget. Options include taxis, ride-sharing like Uber, public transportation, or airport shuttings. I usually research this before I travel so I know what to expect.
That's smart. How do you decide which option to choose?
For me, it depends on how much luggage I have and how far the accommodation is from the airport. If it's close and I have minimal luggage, I'll take public transit to save money. If I have lots of bags or it's far, I'll take a taxi or ride-share. I've taken some interesting airport taxis in my time. Once in Bangkok, the taxi driver didn't speak English at all, and we had to communicate through gestures and Google Translate.
That sounds like an adventure.
It was, but we got there eventually. That's why it's good to have your accommodation address written down or saved on your phone, preferably in the local language too.
Such a good tip. Now, what about using your phone internationally? Do you get a local SIM card or do you use your home carrier's international plan?
I've done both. If I'm staying somewhere for a while, I'll often get a local SIM card because it's usually much cheaper than using roaming. But for short trips, I might just use my home carrier's international plan if it's reasonable.
What about Wi-Fi? Is it easy to find in most places?
Most airports have free Wi-Fi, which is great for letting family know you've arrived. A lot of hotels, cafes, and restaurants also have Wi-Fi. I always make sure to have some offline options too, like downloaded maps and entertainment.
That's really smart. What about navigation apps? Do you use Google Maps or something similar?
I love Google Maps. It works offline too if you download the area beforehand. I also like to have a paper map as a backup because sometimes technology fails.
That's true. I got lost in Lisbon once because my phone died, but I found my way back using a paper map I picked up at my hotel.
See, it's always good to have backup plans.
Now, let's talk about what happens once you've settled into your accommodation, Jack. What's your favorite thing to do first when you arrive at a new place?
I love to just walk around the neighborhood and get a feel for the place. I'll check out nearby restaurants, cafes, shops, and public transportation options. It's like reconnaissance.
I love that. I do something similar. I call it exploring my surroundings.
Curious, what about planning your activities? Do you plan everything out or do you prefer to be spontaneous?
I think I'm a mix of both. I like to have a rough idea of what I want to see and do, but I also leave room for spontaneity. Sometimes the best experiences are the ones you stumble upon.
That's a great approach. Do you book tours and attractions in advance or do you wait until you get there?
It depends on the attraction. If it's something really popular that might sell out, like a famous museum or a show, I'll book in advance. For less popular stuff, I like to play it by ear.
Curious, what about skip-the-line tickets? Are those worth it?
Oh my goodness, yes. If you're visiting somewhere popular like the Colosseum in Rome or the Louvre in Paris, those skip-the-line tickets can save you hours of waiting in line.
They're more expensive, though. Is it worth the extra cost?
It depends on how much time you have and how much you value avoiding crowds. For me, if I'm traveling for a limited time, I want to maximize my time seeing things, not standing in line.
That's a really good point.
Now, what about food? I know you love trying local cuisine.
Food is one of my favorite parts of traveling. I always research the local specialties before I go, and I love to ask locals for recommendations. They always know the best places that aren't in the tourist guidebooks.
What's the best recommendation you've ever gotten from a local?
Oh, that's a great question. There was this one time in Mexico City, and a local recommended this tiny street food stall. It looked kind of sketchy, but I went for it anyway, and it was the best tacos I ever had in my life.
I love those stories. Some of the best food experiences come from those spontaneous recommendations.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to try new things. That's how you discover your new favorites.
What about dietary restrictions or food allergies? Do you have any tips for navigating that while traveling?
I always learn how to say key phrases in the local language, like, I'm allergic to nuts or I don't eat meat. It's really helpful, and I always carry translation cards for my specific allergies just in case.
That's such a smart idea. What about handling money? Do you use cash, card, or a mix?
I usually carry some cash for small purchases and tips, but I mostly use my credit card. Just make sure your card works internationally and check if there are any foreign transaction fees.
I always worry about getting my card declined or not having access to money.
That's why I always tell people to notify their bank before you travel. Otherwise, they might think suspicious activity is happening and freeze your card, which is the last thing you want when you're in a foreign country.
That happened to me once. My bank froze my card because I was in a different country. It was such a hassle to sort out.
Lesson learned. Now I always call my bank before any international trip.
Now, what about shopping for souvenirs? Any tips?
I love buying souvenirs, but I've learned to be strategic. I'll look for locally made products rather than mass-produced tourist stuff. And I always compare prices because the same item can cost very different amounts at different shops.
That's so true. Bargaining is also acceptable in many countries, so don't be afraid to negotiate a bit if that's the local custom.
Curious, how do you know when bargaining is appropriate?
Usually, if you're in a market or a small shop, it's often expected. But in a department store or a restaurant with fixed prices, it's not appropriate. Just observe what others are doing, and if you're not sure, you can always ask.
I once bargained in a shop where bargaining wasn't the custom, and the shop owner looked at me like I was crazy. So learn from my mistake.
It's all part of the learning experience. Now, let's wrap up with some final tips for making your travel experience as smooth as possible, Jack. What's your #1 tip?
That's easy. Be prepared. Do your research before you go. Know the local customs, the language basics, and what to expect. The more prepared you are, the less stressed you'll be.
That's such good advice. What about unexpected situations like flight delays or cancellations?
Oh, that's so important. Flight delays and cancellations happen, especially during bad weather or busy travel seasons. My tip is to always have travel insurance and also to keep your airline's contact information handy so you can rebook quickly.
Should you do if your flight gets delayed at the airport?
First, check the information displays for updates, and also check your airline's app. Then go to the customer service desk if you need help rebooking. Be patient because everyone else is in the same situation.
And if you have a long delay, ask about meal vouchers or hotel accommodations. Airlines often provide those for significant delays, especially if it's their fault.
I once got a hotel voucher for a night because of a massive delay, and I ended up having a great time exploring that city for an extra day.
That's a great attitude, making the best of a bad situation.
What about lost or delayed luggage? What should people do?
Go to the baggage claim area and find your airline's luggage service desk. Report your missing bag, and they'll help you track it down. Make sure to keep your baggage receipt because you'll need it for the claim.
And what if your luggage is actually lost? Can you get compensation?
You can. Most airlines have a limit on how much they'll compensate you, so that's why I always recommend keeping valuable items in your carry-on and also having travel insurance.
Curious, what about health and safety? Any tips there?
Definitely pack a basic first aid kit with things like pain relievers, bandages, and any prescription medications you need. Also, make copies of your important documents, like your passport, and keep them in a separate place from the originals.
And research any health recommendations or required vaccinations for your destination. Some countries require certain vaccinations before you can enter.
That's such important advice. What about staying safe while traveling?
Just use common sense. Be aware of your surroundings, keep your valuables secure, and avoid risky areas, especially at night. It's also a good idea to register with your embassy if you're traveling to a potentially unstable region.
And trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't be afraid to remove yourself from a situation.
I always say that your gut is your best safety tool.
What about staying connected with family and friends while traveling?
I always make sure someone back home knows my itinerary and how to reach me, and I check in regularly so they don't worry. It's also a good idea to have a way to make international calls or use messaging apps that work over Wi-Fi.
What apps do you recommend?
WhatsApp is great because it works over Wi-Fi and lets you text, call, and video chat. I also use Google Translate all the time. It's so helpful for communicating in places where English isn't widely spoken.
Ugh, Google Translate is a lifesaver. I use it all the time, especially for reading menus and signs.
What's your final piece of advice, Anna?
Just enjoy the journey. Travel can be stressful sometimes, but it's also one of the most rewarding experiences. Embrace the unexpected, be open to new experiences, and remember that the memories you make are worth every bit of effort.
That's beautiful. I'm getting teary-eyed over here.
Aw, that's so sweet. And I completely agree. Travel really does broaden your horizons and teach you so much about the world and about yourself.
And remember, everyone starts somewhere. Even the most experienced travelers were once nervous beginners, so don't be intimidated. Just go for it.
That's the best advice anyone could give. Thank you so much, Jack, for sharing all these wonderful tips and stories.
It was my pleasure, Anna. I hope our listeners found this helpful.
Now it's time for our vocabulary breakdown. Let's go over some key phrases from today's conversation.
I'll start with the first phrase, to check in. This means to register at the airport or hotel when you arrive.
Example, I need to check in at least 2 hours before my flight.
Another example, you can check in online to save time.
You can also say check in as a noun. The check-in process was really quick.
What about our next phrase?
Next is to go through security. This means to pass through the security checkpoint at the airport.
Example, make sure you have your boarding pass ready when you go through security.
Another example, I always hate going through security because I have to take off my shoes.
Yes, that can be annoying. Next phrase, to board a plane.
To board means to get on a plane, train, or ship.
Example, boarding for flight 247 is now beginning at gate 15.
Another example, we boarded the plane right on time.
And you can say boarding pass for the document that allows you to get on the plane. Don't forget your boarding pass.
What's the next phrase?
Let's talk about to clear customs. This means to go through the customs inspection process when entering a country.
Example, it took us an hour to clear customs because the line was so long.
Another example, have your declaration form ready when you clear customs.
And customs can also refer to the government department that controls what goods come into a country. Customs officers checked our luggage.
Next phrase, jet lag. This is the tired feeling you get after traveling across time zones.
Example, I'm suffering from jet lag after my flight from New York to Tokyo.
Another example, it took me a few days to get over my jet lag.
You can also say to overcome jet lag or to adjust to jet lag.
Next is to get around. This means to move around or travel within a place.
Example, what's the best way to get around the sea?
Example, we got around by subway because it was fast and cheap.
You can also say getting around as a noun. Getting around in London is easy with the tube.
What about our next phrase?
Let's talk about to book in advance. This means to reserve something like tickets or accommodation before you arrive.
Example, we booked our museum tickets in advance to avoid waiting in line.
Another example, hotels fill up quickly in summer, so it's best to book in advance.
You can also say advance booking. Advance bookings are usually cheaper.
Next phrase is to make a reservation. This means to arrange in advance to have something like a table at a restaurant or a room at a hotel.
Example, I made a reservation at that restaurant we talked about.
Another example, do I need to make a reservation or can we just show up?
And reservation can also mean a feeling of doubt or hesitation. I have some reservations about this plan.
Next phrase is to make a reservation. This means to arrange in advance to have something like a table at a restaurant or a room at a hotel.
Example, I made a reservation at that restaurant we talked about.
Another example, do I need to make a reservation or can we just show up?
And reservation can also mean a feeling of doubt or hesitation. I have some reservations about this plan.
Let's talk about duty-free. This refers to goods that are sold without taxes, usually at airports.
Example, I bought some chocolate at the duty-free shop.
Another example, duty-free shopping can save you money on alcohol and perfume.
Note that it's always hyphenated, duty-free.
Next is to pass through immigration. This means to go through the checkpoint where your passport and visa are checked when entering a country.
Example, we had to pass through immigration before we could get our luggage.
Another example, immigration lines can be very long during peak travel times.
Sometimes people just say immigration instead of to pass through immigration.
Let's talk about to be valid. This means to be legally or officially acceptable.
Example, make sure your passport is valid for at least 6 months.
Another example, is this ticket still valid?
The opposite is invalid or expired. My driver's license is expired.
Next phrase is to strike up a conversation. This means to start talking to someone, usually in a casual way.
Example, I struck up a conversation with the person sitting next to me on the plane.
Another example, in hostels, it's easy to strike up conversations with other travelers.
You can also say to start a conversation. She started a conversation with the bartender.
Next is to get the hang of something. This means to learn how to do something through practice.
Example, I didn't know how to use the subway at first, but I got the hang of it quickly.
Another example, it takes a while to get the hang of driving on the left side of the road.
This phrase is really common in everyday English.
Next is to save for a rainy day. This means to save money for unexpected expenses or difficult times.
Example, I always keep some money saved for a rainy day when I travel.
Another example, it's good to have an emergency fund saved for a rainy day.
The idea is that you save money for when you might need it unexpectedly.
Next phrase is to be worth it. This means to have sufficient value or advantage to justify the cost or effort.
Example, the extra cost for the luxury hotel was totally worth it.
Another example, is the tour worth it or should we explore on our own?
You can also say it's worth it or it's worth the money.
Next phrase is to be on a tight budget. This means to have limited money available to spend.
Example, we're on a tight budget, so we're staying in hostels and cooking our own meals.
Another example, there are ways to travel even if you're on a tight budget.
You can also say budget conscious or budget travel.
Our next phrase is to rough it. This means to live in basic or uncomfortable conditions, usually while camping or traveling cheaply.
Example, we decided to rough it and camp instead of staying in hotels.
Another example, I don't mind roughing it a bit when I travel as long as I have a clean place to sleep.
This phrase has a slightly negative connotation, implying uncomfortable conditions.
Next is to make the most of something. This means to get the greatest possible advantage or enjoyment from a situation.
Example, even though it rained, we made the most of our day and visited museums.
Another example, make the most of your time in Paris. There's so much to see.
You can also say to make the best of something.
Our final phrase is to have the time of your life. This means to have an extremely enjoyable and memorable experience.
Example, we had the time of our lives on our trip to Italy.
Another example, I hope you have the time of your life at the concert tonight.
That's such a wonderful phrase to end on.
Great job, everyone. Those are some really useful phrases for traveling. Now let's move on to our reflection questions. These are for you to think about and practice answering on your own.
Question 1. When was the last time you traveled, and where did you go? What was the highlight of your trip?
Think about the most memorable moment of that trip.
Question 2. What is your biggest challenge when traveling abroad? Is it the language, the food, navigating transportation, or something else?
Consider what makes you feel most nervous or uncomfortable when traveling.
Question 3. Do you prefer to plan every detail of your trip, or do you like to be spontaneous? Why?
There's no right or wrong answer. It's all about what works for you.
Question 4. What is the best travel tip you've ever received from someone? How has it helped you?
Maybe it was something about packing, booking, or dealing with unexpected situations.
Question 5. If you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go and why?
Dream big. Imagine you have unlimited time and budget.
Question 6. Have you ever experienced a travel mishap, like a flight delay, lost luggage, or getting lost? How did you handle it?
Share your story and what you learned from the experience.
Question 7. What is one thing you would do differently on your next trip based on what you learned today?
Think about something you might change about how you plan or travel.
Question 8. Do you prefer traveling alone, with friends, or with family? What do you enjoy most about your preferred style?
Each style of travel offers different experiences and challenges.
Question 9. How do you stay safe and healthy while traveling? What precautions do you take?
Consider both physical safety and health.
Question 10. What is one new phrase or vocabulary word from today's episode that you want to remember and use soon?
Pick one and try to use it in a real conversation soon.
Those are our reflection questions. Take your time to think about them and maybe practice answering them out loud. That's one of the best ways to improve your English speaking skills.
Wow, we've covered so much today, haven't we?
We really did. From planning and booking your trip to going through the airport to arriving at your destination and everything in between.
I learned so much from you, Jack, and I hope our listeners did too.
It was my pleasure, Anna. This was such a fun conversation.
So, to summarize what we learned today,
First, we talked about planning and booking your trip, checking your calendar, finding flights and accommodations, and researching your destination.
then we covered the airport experience, checking in, going through security, and boarding your flight.
We discussed travel documents, passports, visas, and going through customs.
We talked about the in-flight experience and arriving at your destination.
We covered holiday accommodations and activities, including how to make the most of your time.
And we finished with some final tips for smooth travel.
Remember, practice makes perfect. The more you travel and use English in real situations, the more comfortable you'll become.
So don't be afraid to book that trip and try out all these new phrases and vocabulary words.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a review.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes.
We'll see you next time on the English Daily Podcast.
Thanks for listening and keep practicing.
Bye for now, everyone. Safe travels.
Take care. Your learning journey doesn't stop here. Keep improving your English. Click the next video or explore more episodes we've picked just for you. See you in the next lesson.